So, Rishi Sunak really has not had, well, a good weekend. Um, of all these revelations that have come out, ultimately those about his wife having non-dom status, not only that, or that about his green card status as well, which looks as if he's broken US immigration law, have all really come together after a week of, well, absolutely getting non-stop pilloried in the press, in the right-wing press, especially for not even going to help those poorest in need and effectively doing nothing to help them, and especially at such a time where we are literally having the cost of living crisis with rising prices, rising inflation, the national insurance rise as well, which again doesn't help workers. Um, the Brexit crisis, which is also causing more problems again to prices to rise. And then, of course, you've got the gas and electricity problem, the energy crisis. If only 10 years ago the Tories had not stood in the way of creating offshore wind farms, we might not be even in this place. But again, it was a problem of their own making. And now, well, as we went over last Saturday, there had to be a suspect list because all this information came out at a very, very convenient time, especially, talk about kicking someone when they're down. But ultimately, this is, well, what happened. And we went through our suspect list on Saturday, and prime of my suspect list, just to quickly go over it, was Dominic Cummings, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Michael Gove, maybe even Penny Mordaunt. And then, of course, the field just opens wide after that. But Boris Johnson being there, being, the second suspect, maybe he should have been the prime suspect all along, because Boris does not like Sunak. He did not like the popularity he gained during the pandemic and has always resented him for the popularity. And he's got somewhat sort of a point. Prime ministers in the past have always had to beware, the man from number 11 moving into his pad at number 10. And history has shown that to be the case. And Rishi Sunak has made no secret, of course, of his own prime ministerial ambitions. Even has his own faction and group supporting him in that role. So the question is, well, will Rishi Sunak last? And who was really behind all these very, very coincidental leaks coming out after having such a bad week himself? The timing is very, very suspicious. But the question should be asked, is Boris Johnson about to have his revenge on Rishi Sunak? So before we go into the article, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And also down below, there are links to my one-off donation page, Buy Me Coffee, and also my Patreon page as well. And of course, there are the YouTube memberships down as well. So thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. And of course, on with the show. So this comes from the New Statesman with the title of, "Will Boris Johnson now take revenge on Rishi Sunak?" In October of 2016, shortly after the Brexit vote, the then Prime Minister Theresa May declared in a Conservative conference speech, "If you believe you are a citizen of the world, you are a citizen of nowhere." Oh, dear me, a citizen of nowhere. And that quote spoke to the new type of Tory party, one that was trying to address the angst that May and her team had felt had been conveyed by the referendum. Under May, the influence of her chief strategist and chief scriptwriter, Nick Timothy, the Tory party promised to govern decisively in favour of the UK's commentarians and, of course, the national nominal majority of traditionalists, anchored by a very small homes across the country, and to govern against a very footloose minority of socially liberal cosmopolitans who dominated British culture from their enclaves in major cities, particularly London. And of course, Rishi Sunak's success as Chancellor until very recently sprung from his ability to bridge this divide. He was both a poster boy for the urban cosmopolitans who saw him as a social liberal and socially unsavvy antidote to a very distasteful nationalistic Tory party, and of course the unaccepted Chancellor to the country's commentarians, who were then supported during COVID-19 with the full generosity of the state while donning Wellington boots and taking tea in constituency walks as a Yorkshire MP. But this week's revelations that Sunak's wife is a non-dom, which will allow her to avoid an estimated 1.4 million in the UK dividends taxes last year, and that Sunak himself held a US green card until recently, are now politically devastating because they create the impression that Sunak has carefully avoided until now that he is a rootless cosmopolitan for whom the Treasury is merely an international playground among many. No prime ministerial aspirant can afford to look as if they may disown the UK for another country. That is the political damage of Sunak having held a green card, which held, again, no tax benefit for him or his wife, and would in fact have been more costly for them. But his wife did avoid tax by not being domiciled in the UK, and by retaining her non-dom status, she was set to avoid around £200 million worth in future inheritance taxes. And we are far from Caesar's wife being above suspicion. We didn't suspect that Sunak's wife is probably avoiding tax into the Treasury run by her husband. We know it. We all knew that he was minted, and that his wife was even more minted, a Northern Tory MP from a very modest background told me. I don't think he deliberately went out of his way to conceal any of this, but this is how it looks when people are struggling to pay their gas bills. 10 weeks is indeed a long time in politics, and on the 3rd of February, when his wife when Marina Murras stunningly resigned as Boris Johnson's policy chief, Sunak chose not to lend his full support to Johnson that day, telling reporters that he wouldn't have accused Keir Starmer of failing to prosecute Jimmy Savile, as Johnson had in a failing Commons appearance that day before feigning for his political life. Sunak may soon rue that very comment, which was another attempt to try and straddle the political divide in the cases between the Tory rebels and the Johnson loyalists. It is now highly plausible that Johnson could soon remove Sunak from the Treasury, and the Prime Minister is known to favour the old ageing lions around the cabinet table, not the younger, more able rivals. And while Sunak does not now seem to be a political threat, he was once one of the most beloved enough to have conceivably rise again. And in January, he was the only major UK politician with a positive approval rating. So let that sink in. If this does all indeed happen, Boris is effectively getting rid of a political rival at a time, well, where it's not, shall we say, seen as getting rid of a political rival, it's seen as getting rid of a potential problem. Oh, sorry, old chum, all this is a bit too much for us. Just, go back to the backbenchers for a while. But it's putting him in a box, essentially saying, you can't be Prime Minister now. Off you go. Number 10 will, as one MP puts it, be dancing a jig. And after this week's news, Johnson has fielded questions on Sunak while blaming and remarking that a minister's family should be kept out of the headlines, if they possibly can be. A phrase that condones responses more than it condemns them. Johnson is improbably ascendant with his party once again, and his Tory detractors are very despondent. I'm one of those po-faced individuals on the sidelines, a Partygate rebel told me. Is it necessary to rely on the invasion of another country by a despot for Johnson to look good? I suppose that's how it goes. The events, dear boy, events. Although the MP did add, hopefully, that there is bound to be something else that crops up. This may obviously be proved true for Johnson, but it is hard to see how Sunak's increasingly ravaged reputation will greatly improve. He cannot, like Johnson, use the international stage to try and change the narrative around him. Having failed to move against the Prime Minister back in February, Sunak may soon find Johnson moves against him. And we've seen this before. This political moving happened before, and I think it would be a politically correct move for Johnson to take out Sunak. He takes out his biggest political threat. Like I say, if there's ever another scandal, well, you've got this guy Sunak who's been doing a really good job, who's a big uniter among all these different Tory factions. Might be good to, bump off Boris and put Rishi in place instead. But now, again, with these revelations about his wife and, of course, the green card, well, certain questions now have to be asked. And, of course, the biggest one was, did he in any way benefit his wife after having set the UK tax policy? And, of course, that is a very legitimate question that, should be asked and should be looked into. Ultimately, I think this is going to definitely come up to the Commons, committee that is going to look at how Sunak has acted, and he will be, expected to say, well, how did you react? Well, what did you do? Will Sunak be still here by the end of the week? Possibly. Possibly. Will Boris replace him? It's possible. Like I say, a week can be a long time in politics, but I've said this before about Boris, I'll be surprised if he survives the week, but I'll be surprised if Sunak manages to survive the week. But maybe Boris uses this as an opportunity to, again, keep Sunak around, but use it, shall we say, as more as, well, leverage. I have all this stuff on you now. You know how bad it makes you look. Play nice, play fair, or else maybe some more stuff gets leaked. I am fully expecting more stuff to come out this week about Sunak. I will not be surprised if more stuff does come out. But like I said before, Boris is known for taking revenge. And I would not put it past him at this moment in time to take revenge on Sunak, because it doesn't look like you're taking political revenge on a rival. It just looks like you're removing a chancellor who had a conflict of interest. And that's far more, shall we say, palatable to the Conservative voters than just, well, getting rid of him for, I don't like him because he's too popular. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button, and comment down below if you think you've got another potential suspect who was the leaker in this whole Sunak affair. And of course, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for tuning in. And of course, we'll see you all next time.